My name is Maya Torres and I am 26 years old. I work customer support from home. I keep a tidy budget because numbers treat me better when I treat them well, and I track every mile I earn in a neat little spreadsheet that makes my heart feel safe. On a Thursday morning, my phone buzzed while I was pouring coffee, and a small push alert turned into a big quiet storm. The Airline app said, "Congratulations, your redemption is complete." Except I hadn't redeemed anything. I opened the app, blinked once and saw my balance sitting at near zero. 3 flights to Honolulu, 2 upgrades and a hotel transfer. My name wasn't on any of it. The passenger names were familiar in the worst way: Bianca Torres and Marco Ruiz. My sister and her husband were leaving for their honeymoon on the miles I had saved for 2 years. Mile by mile, lunch by lunch, roof overhead by roof overhead. I didn't slam anything and I didn't shout. I took a slow breath and opened the activity log. The log showed the story in short lines. Household transfer enabled last week. Pool manager, Rafael Torres. That's my dad. Redemption approved at 6:01 a.m. Device. Web. IP. A number I didn't recognize at first, then recognized too well because it was from my parents' house. I set my mug down, wiped the ring it left on the table and clicked more details, with a hand that was steady on purpose. Before I tell you what I did, here's the shape of this story. A family call that turned into a quiet plan, a few calm steps that mattered more than emotions, and a policy that waited like a door I only had to open with the right sentence. I won't reveal the turn yet, I'll let you feel it when it arrives. If you've ever had points drama in your group chat, drop your city and come right back. We're staying focused. I texted Mom first because she replies even when the sun is still stretching. Warning. Did Dad change anything on my airline account? She sent a heart, then, "Ask your father, sweetheart." I called Dad next. He answered with that cheerful tone he uses when the car needs brakes and he wants you to think it's a blessing. "Good news," he said. "We finally made family pooling work. Your sister's dates were about to jump. It's all in the family, Maya. We'll put some miles back after the honeymoon." "I didn't authorize pooling," I said, and I kept my voice soft like a pillow you can lean on. "Who turned it on?" "It's a feature," Dad said. "It's meant for moments like this. We used your number as the, donor account. We'll settle later. Don't be stiff." "I'm not stiff," I said. "I'm careful." I thanked him for picking up, ended the call and opened my laptop. I wrote a small list in big letters because big letters make my brain slow down and do the right thing. Secure my account. Collect proof. Check the program rules. Keep everyone calm. Let a simple plan breathe. I changed my password and turned on 2FA. I disabled household pooling from my side, which the app allowed after one more code. I took screenshots of the activity log with timestamps and saved them in a folder called Miles, Timeline. I exported my points spreadsheet as a PDF and placed it right next to the screenshots like a friend. I made tea and read the program terms in small, patient bites. Some lines were gentle. Some lines were sharp. The line I liked best was short and clean. All redeemers must be authorized users or account holders. Redemptions made without account holder consent may be cancelled. I didn't run to social media and I didn't write a speech in the family chat. I texted Bianca instead and I kept the words easy to carry. "Hey, did Dad put my miles on your honeymoon? I'm not mad. I need to see the booking page with your names on it." 3 dots. Then another 3 dots. Then, yes. He said it's family pooling. We were going to tell you at brunch. Please don't be mad. We'll make it up to you with gift cards. I stared at the words gift cards and felt an old heat. I let it pass. I asked for the confirmation email and she forwarded it with a stream of heart emojis that did not fix anything. I printed the confirmation, stapled it to my timeline and looked at dates. The flights were in 2 days. The window was small, which is exactly the size I like for action that needs to be clean. I packed a sandwich because hunger makes people reckless and I am not a reckless person. I put my folder in my tote. I checked my hair in the microwave door. Then I walked to the bus stop with my heart beating low, steady, and ready to be boring in a useful way. The airport on a weekday morning smells like coffee and wheels. I went straight to the loyalty desk, which sits a little apart from the regular counters like a quiet cousin who knows secrets. A woman with a neat bun and a name tag that said Lena looked up with eyes that were both kind and precise. "How can I help?" she asked. "I need help with a household pooling mistake," I said. "I brought the details and I'll keep this short." I slid the folder across and spoke in medium sentences that any person could understand without checking a dictionary. My father had turned on pooling. I had not consented. My miles were used for a honeymoon I did not book. Here were the screenshots of the log, the IP from the house that wasn't mine, and the terms that say consent matters. Here was the confirmation my sister sent me. Here was my ID to prove I was the person attached to the account. I smiled like I was asking for a glass of water and not justice. Lena read, and I watched her eyes do the thing that tells you an adult is in the room. She called someone quietly, used my last name without mangling it, and asked me to wait 1 moment. I waited with my sandwich still in my bag because good things take a minute. A man with a headset approached, and Lena introduced him as Jordan, the loyalty supervisor. He didn't ask me to retell the story. He asked one question: "Did you authorize anyone in writing to redeem your miles?" I said no. He nodded once, asked for a second to review the terms I had highlighted, and then made 2 phone calls in a tone that sounded like a smooth road. While he called, my phone buzzed 5 times in a row. Dad, Mom, Bianca, Dad again. I put the phone face down and looked at the little airplane model on the counter instead. I thought about how small words make big doors open. I thought about how grown-up calm is louder than shouting if you let it echo in the right places. I thought about the sandwich and decided I would eat it only after the air changed. Jordan came back and stood with his hands folded. He spoke like a person who respects mornings. "Miss Torres, thank you for bringing clear documentation. We've noted your lack of consent on the account. Please give me a few minutes to review the redemption status and the program policy. If you need water, Lena will get you some." I told him I was fine. I told him I liked the model airplane. He smiled without showing teeth, which is the smile of a person who has seen too many loud people in one day and appreciates a quiet one. I sent Bianca a short text while I waited. "I'm at the airport loyalty desk just confirming the rules. Please don't worry. I'll keep everyone updated." She replied with 8 heart emojis and 1 crying face, which looked like our childhood in a row. I put the phone away again. I kept my breathing like a tide that follows the moon and doesn't argue with it. When Jordan returned, he carried a small printout and a calm decision in his voice. "We have what we need to proceed," he said. He thanked me again for bringing facts, not noise. He explained that some parts of the process would take place in the system and some in person, and that simple steps can be surprisingly strong when they line up with policy. He asked me to wait nearby for 10 more minutes while he finished a few actions on the back end and made 1 more call to a department with a very long name that sounded like a lock and a key inside the same word. My phone buzzed again. 10 missed calls. Then 12. I didn't pick up. I ate half my sandwich and took a sip of water. I looked at the runway and thought about how planes wait, engines ready, wheels holding, and then move at the exact second they should. No sooner, no later. I like that kind of behavior. It makes me feel like the world can be simple if you treat it like a checklist and not a rumor. Jordan waved me back to the counter with a small gesture. His eyes were kind again and precise again, which is my favorite combination. He thanked me for my patience, told me what would happen next in words that fit in one breath, and asked me to confirm one last detail so everything would line up like the stripes on the floor. I nodded, answered, and stood very still. The air felt different, not dramatic, just correct. I tucked my folder under my arm and felt the spine of it like a handle. I stepped back from the counter, checked my phone, and saw the number rise to 20 missed calls. I didn't press play on any voicemail. I watched a plane lift its nose and follow its lines into the sky, clean and sure. Jordan waved me forward and spoke in a steady, courteous voice that felt like a door opening. He said the system had accepted my statement of no consent, that household pooling on my profile was now disabled, and that a note requiring my verbal PIN for any redemption was locked to my account. He explained that the honeymoon booking created with my miles had been separated from my profile, and the travelers would be asked to provide their own form of payment to keep their dates. He didn't use showy words. He used clear ones that fit in a single breath. I thanked him not just because of what he did but because of how he did it. He slid a little printout toward me with a case number and a 1-sentence summary. I placed it in my folder like a key in a small pocket where it would never fall out. Lena asked if I needed water for the road. I said I would have it later when my hands stopped being so politely busy. My phone trembled again. I turned it over and read the top 3 messages without opening them. "Dad, answer now. Mom, call your father. Bianca, are we in trouble?" I typed one simple reply to the thread so it would stand for all of them. I'm following the program rules. Please don't panic. The airline will contact the travelers with next steps. I left it at that because anything more would invite a storm I didn't need to stand in. On the bus home, the city slid by with its own soft certainty. I ate the second half of my sandwich and thought about the line Jordan had said, "No consent, no redemption," and how good it felt to have a rule that did not care about who was older or who shouted first. I thought about my spreadsheet waiting on my desk and how I would open it and type one new word in the notes column. Secured. By early afternoon, Bianca called. Her voice had the shake of someone trying to be sunny while watching clouds gather. "The airline emailed us," she said. "They said we need to provide a new card for the flights or the seats go back into inventory. Is this you?" "This is the program," I said gently. "You'll be fine if you add a card today or tomorrow. If you want help choosing the right fare, I'll help you find something that makes sense." "I didn't know Dad used your miles like that," she said. "He said it's how families do it." "Families do many things," I said, "but accounts follow the person who earned them." She breathed, I breathed, and the call ended without a crack. Around dinner, Dad finally left a voicemail I chose to hear, because sometimes you should know a wave before it reaches shore. He talked about loyalty and gratitude and making memories, and how I had embarrassed the family by involving strangers. I pressed stop halfway through and set the phone down like it was hot. Then I wrote a short message to the group chat the way a person writes a grocery list. Calm and useful. I didn't involve strangers. I followed policy. My account is secured. Please don't use my numbers. If you need help booking, ask me and I will help within what I can afford. Let's eat together Sunday. No surprises. No one answered for an hour. Silence can be a fence and also a bridge depending on how you stand near it. Just before bed, an email from the airline arrived with 3 lines that sat me straighter in my chair. Household pooling removed. Verbal PIN required. Unauthorized redemption separated. Travelers notified. Under that, a quiet bonus I hadn't expected. A small courtesy mileage credit for the inconvenience, the kind programs give when you show up prepared and polite. I smiled at the number not because it would change my life, but because it was a hand on the shoulder from a system that noticed someone did the right thing. Morning brought fewer messages and better air. I made oatmeal, opened my spreadsheet and typed the courtesy credit with a neat date. Bianca sent a screenshot showing the new payment accepted and a tiny sad face about losing the upgrades Dad had added like sprinkles he didn't own. I told her it would still be a beautiful trip, that the ocean doesn't care about seat numbers, and that she should pack sunscreen and a book she can spill coffee on without crying. 2 days later, the airport had its weekend hum and I found myself there again. Not to interfere, not to gloat, just to have a coffee at the cafe that lives across from the security line where goodbyes taste like cinnamon. I had errands nearby. It made sense to sit and let the morning roll by. Bianca and Marco came up the escalator with matching neck pillows and that shy joy new couples wear. She saw me through the glass and waved the way we waved when we were kids looking for each other after school. We hugged in a calm circle of space. Bianca whispered, "We fixed it," and then quieter, "I'm sorry." I told her we were okay and pointed to the little bakery where the croissants looked like good omens. Dad and Mom came a few minutes later, and Dad's face had the careful look he uses when a plan has learned a lesson. He opened his mouth, closed it and patted Marco on the shoulder instead. Maybe that was the apology I was going to get. Maybe it was the one I needed. At check-in, a gate agent glanced at the screen, looked at Bianca's confirmation, and smiled with the ease of a person who has already solved a problem behind the scenes. I saw Lena at the far end speaking to another passenger, and she lifted a hand in a small hello that felt like respect, not theater. The agent handed Bianca their passes with a soft, "Enjoy your trip," and the line moved like a river that knows where the rocks are. While they curled towards security, Dad drifted back to me, hands in his pockets like the wind might carry them. "We'll talk Sunday," he said, not quite looking at me, which in his language meant I heard you. "Bring that spreadsheet you love." He tried to smile. It turned into something honest instead. "Sunday," I said. "I'll bring dessert." They waved and went. I stayed until I could no longer see the color of Bianca's backpack. Then I took a slow walk to the short-term lot where practical cars nap. My phone showed a few new messages. A recipe from Mom, a heart from Bianca, a single word from Dad, noted. It felt like a stone set in the right place in a path that had been wobbly. Back home, the day folded into chores that mean you're safe. laundry, a clean sink, a glass of water you forget you're drinking. I made a small list for Sunday. Print account terms in case anyone wanted to argue with memory. Bring 2 pens because someone always loses one. Write 3 lines I plan to say and no more. The lines were simple: I protect what I earn. I'll help when asked. Surprises don't work here. Evening came with quiet rain. I set my phone face down and read a chapter of a book that didn't try to teach me anything other than how to sit still. I slept without the jitter in my chest that comes from wondering who is touching your numbers while you dream. Sunday arrived with sunshine that made the kitchen tiles look newly mopped even though they weren't. I brought a tray of bakery cookies because sugar softens rooms. We gathered at my parents' table and I placed my folder next to the napkins like it was a normal part of family lunch. There were the usual jokes, the usual clatter, the usual, pass the salt. And then a small necessary pause where grown people decide whether they are going to act like it. Dad raised his eyebrows in a question that didn't need words. I nodded. I said the 3 lines I had practiced slowly and without flavoring. Mom said she understood and that next time she would ask before touching anything with numbers. Bianca said she would open her own loyalty account now that she understood points are not a jar you borrow from just because you share a last name. Marco said thank you without lifting his eyes from the cookie in his hand, which is the kind of thank you I believe. We agreed on 2 new rules and wrote them down on the back of a grocery list so it would feel like a house rule and not a court order. No one touches accounts without the person present. No one uses family pooling as a shortcut word for taking. We taped it to the inside of the pantry door where other good habits live, like check the oven and water the plant. After lunch, Dad brought out a small envelope and slid it to me like he wasn't sure what it weighed. Inside was a gift card for the airline and a note that said, "For your next trip. Earned by you, used by you." It wasn't the miles he took. It wasn't the same shape of thing. It wasn't a ledger balance to the last crumb. It was a step, and steps are how bridges are built when you don't own a crane. I walked home in the kind of weather that forgives your face for frowning all week. I made tea, opened my spreadsheet and typed one last word under today's date. Peace. Then I closed the laptop and let the kettle click itself quiet. Bianca and Marco sent one photo from the airport before boarding, the kind that looks a little shaky because hands are excited, and under it she wrote a simple line that felt right on my screen. We added our own card. We're good. Thank you for keeping this calm. I told her to drink water on the plane and stretch her ankles and pick a window if she wanted the ocean to arrive early. She sent back a heart and a palm tree, which in our language means we are fine for now. Their trip looked happy through the small window of a few pictures a day. Beaches, a plate of fruit that always looks brighter near the Pacific. A goofy selfie of 2 people who have not yet learned which side is each person's favorite side. She never mentioned upgrades again and I never brought them up, and it felt like we both put a heavy object down and then remembered how to walk without leaning. At home the week was plain in the best way. I worked my shifts, I kept my kitchen clean, and I wrote 2 small cards I had been meaning to send to friends who helped me pack when I moved last year. Dad did not call, which sounds cold, but it was better than the kind of calling that bends sentences into guilt. Mom texted a picture of her trying a new recipe and asked if I wanted to come by Sunday to taste it. I said yes, and I told her I would bring the same cookies as last time so no one could say they were surprised by anything, not even dessert. On Friday, I got an email from the airline with a short subject that made my shoulders loosen. Account security settings confirmed. It listed the verbal PIN, the pooling lock, and an optional setting I hadn't noticed before that required an extra code if anyone tried to add a new device. I turned that on and smiled because it felt like installing one more lock on a door that matters. I added the date to my spreadsheet with the little note I like. Secured. The day before Bianca flew home, Dad called, and this time I answered because the air between us had cooled enough to hold a simple talk. His voice was slower than the voicemail had been, and he went around the block once before he parked the car. He said he didn't realize the app made pooling so easy, and he thought if a feature existed then it was meant to be used without ceremony, and he didn't like learning otherwise from anyone who worked at a counter. I told him I understood the dislike and that I didn't love learning from counters either, which is why I showed up with pages so the counter became a friend instead of a judge. He was quiet for a moment, then said he had started his own loyalty account that week like a grown man should, and he wanted to know where to click to set his own PIN because the app kept hiding it. I told him where and he said, "Thank you," in a tone that had no performance baked into it, only usefulness. Sunday lunch looked different in small ways that matter. The grocery list rules we wrote were still taped inside the pantry, and someone had underlined "no surprises" with a neat stroke like a person practicing handwriting. Mom's recipe was a success. Bianca brought me a little shell bracelet that would probably scratch if I wore it in the shower but looked nice on the table. And Marco said he tried surfing and learned that not every challenge is meant for your first week of marriage. When we sat down, Dad slid an envelope toward me the way he had before, and I opened it with the same careful fingers to find a small airline gift card and a note that said, "For your trip, your account, your rules." It was not a ledger run by math. It was a bridge built by effort. I told him I appreciated the effort and that if he wanted I could help him find a card that earned miles on the errands he already does, not as a sales pitch, but as a map that keeps him from asking me where the map is every time he wants to leave the house. He almost smiled and asked if I would help him book a flight to see his brother in the fall using his own account this time. I said yes, and we set a small rule just for him that we both repeated out loud like a line from a class. Ask first, click second. He said it again slower and it sounded good in his voice. Bianca and Marco returned on a Tuesday evening with sun on their faces and the kind of tired that makes people honest. We met at baggage claim because that is where stories feel most true, and she hugged me with both arms and said she was sorry again without the weight of before, which made it easy to say I loved her and meant it. Dad stood a little back and didn't offer to carry my tote, which was his way of proving he could carry his own account from now on. Mom told me the soup would be warm if I came by the next night, and then she handed me a tiny bag with a magnet shaped like a wave, which is exactly the level of gift a person should bring when the real present was listening. A week after they returned, Dad sent me a text shaped like a question without a question mark. Miles show 4,500 from groceries. Good. I wrote back that it was good and that points do not grow fast unless you live in airports, which he does not, and that patience is part of the system, which I knew was not his favorite word. He wrote "noted" again, which is becoming our small promise to each other. I heard you and I will act like it tomorrow. I used the courtesy miles the airline gave me to book a short trip to see a friend 2 states over. Nothing grand, just a weekend of coffee shops that spell your name correctly and long walks that end at the same bench. At the gate, I thought about how quiet the whole thing felt now that my account had a fence. When the agent called my group, I looked at the wing through the glass and sent Dad a photo with one simple caption: "This one's mine." He replied with a thumbs up and a tiny airplane, and for once that was exactly enough. On my flight home, I scribbled a few lines in my notebook so I wouldn't forget the shape of this lesson when the feeling faded. The lines were plain. Set locks when you are calm because you will not set them well when you are upset. Write timelines that fit on one page because people read what they can carry. Speak to the person in front of you as if they can help you because many times they can, and never confuse a feature with permission because an app can open a door that your values keep closed. The next time a family situation tried to use a shortcut, it stopped at the pantry door where our rules lived, and it turned around without needing a speech. Bianca now has her own loyalty account and sends me screenshots when she is unsure, and I am proud in a quiet way that makes sense. Mom has started asking before she forwards any email with a confirmation number in it, which makes the kitchen feel like a safer room. Dad, who will always like speed more than patience, now explains to other relatives that pooling is not a magic word. And I let him wear that like a new jacket because it looks good on him even if I bought the fabric. Most days are normal again, which is the sweetest result of all. My spreadsheet has a new tab called Family Rules, not because I am a sheriff, but because I like to remember what worked so I can do it again without needing anyone to clap for me. The 20 missed calls from that first week feel like a story from another house, and I am glad to live in this one, where the phone stays quiet when it should and rings only when someone wants to tell me about a new recipe or a cheap fare that we can both book with our own accounts, smiling at the same screen for different reasons. Thank you for staying with me. If your family ever treats your accounts like a group project, keep the steps small and the words simple. Lock your login, read the terms, save screenshots, and speak softly to the person who can actually fix it. Paper over panic, policy over pressure, peace over noise. If this helped you breathe, follow for more calm wins, and tell me where you're listening from so I can wave back next time.